Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got an interesting show for you. All right, let's pull up this screen. Florida fans, are they correct or are they delusional? Now, I know what you're going to say. You're always picking on the Gators. You're always giving them grief.
Quit hitting yourself! Quit hitting yourself!
Look, I don't control the algorithm. And I'm just sitting there going over show ideas, and I had a couple of different things I thought about doing. And all of a sudden, the algorithm sends me this video. I take a look at it, and I'm like, well, ding, 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 ding. Idea pops up. I think I'll do a show on this. Now, I don't control the algorithm. Look, I just meet with it from time to time, and it kind of controls the world.
Hello, Neo.
Who are you?
I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you.
That's right. Some people call it an architect, algorithm, whatever. It's about the same thing. And as far as me picking on the Gators, look, yeah, I occasionally give the Gators a little bit of grief. But after 25 years of them giving us grief, and especially one Steve Spurrier, they kind of deserve it. So anyway, we're going to feature another YouTuber on here that well, it's not another one. I've featured this young lady before, and she is very happy with the quarterback situation and the quarterback room, and she thinks everything's fine and that everybody that's on YouTube that's saying that it's not the case, that their quarterback room is fine, is wrong. I'm going to have to disagree with it, but again, let's take a look and see what she's got to say. This is Peek Into the Gators, and this young lady covers them, and she's going to talk about the truth of U.S. QB situation. Now, before y'all say, oh, she's this nice young lady and you shouldn't be giving her grief, etc., and she never talks smack, she's always talking positively about the Gators, and that's it. Let's see.
Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that I would like nothing more than for Florida State to wallow in mediocrity in the ACC for literally the rest of eternity. They had a chance to pick the SEC back in the day, and they picked the easier route. They've said as much. They picked the ACC over the SEC because it was an easier path to not only the conference championship, but the national title. Their AD has spoken about how there would be a $30 million revenue gap, and I'd love it. Absolutely love it if FSU fell further and further and further behind where they are right now.
Exactly. And she's actually correct about that. But let me assure you, there's no love lost between Florida and Florida State. See, we think we know what a rivalry is. Like we have, well, Alabama's, it's been one-sided for the last umpteen years until last year. Yes. But anyway, a rivalry, a really big one, and usually a really kind of vicious one, is between two universities in the same state. And that means Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, South Carolina. That's a nasty one. And then you've got three in Florida. You've got Florida, Florida State. You've got Florida, Miami. You got Florida State, Miami. You got well, there's a bunch of them. Anyway, and I'm telling you, it gets ugly. They do not like each other. They fight over everything. It's one of those that, you got to be a little careful. You don't want to get in the middle of it because it gets really rough. So we think we know a rivalry, but not like they've got. So, but let's see what Peek Into the Gators thinks about their QB situation.
A lot has been said about UF's quarterback situation this upcoming season, but not all of it is true. Based on what we've seen and heard this year, Graham Mertz will be the starting quarterback for the University of Florida when they take the field against Utah. Fans seem to have just about every emotion imaginable when talking about UF's starting quarterback, from concerned to angry to nervous. But what if there was no reason for any of that? What if Billy Napier got this transfer right? We're going to dive into why Graham Mertz may exceed just about everybody's expectations at the quarterback position this year for UF.
First of all, Florida ought to hire this young lady. They really should. She is as positive and pro-Florida as you could possibly be. They ought to sponsor her channel or hire her because I'm telling you, nothing gets her down. She stays positive on Florida no matter what. Every YouTuber, every news organization, every sports writer has absolutely sold Florida's quarterback situation down. And look, before I go too far with that, I'm sure Graham Mertz is a great guy. He is probably a super good young man, and I don't wish him luck on the field, but I wish him luck in life, okay? So before anybody, they're human beings. I played Division I sports. I know how hard they try. This guy's probably going to go out and give it every single thing he's got, and then 10% more on top of that. So I get it. But the reality is, when you come in the SEC, you have to be the elite of the elite. Otherwise, it's not going to be pretty. You're not playing in the ACC or the Big 12 or whatever one of those silly little conferences. But, you know, Big Ten's a little bit of a conference, but they're really the SEC and everybody else.
Has been a lot said recently about Graham Mertz and how he's going to perform at Florida. Do we really think he's going to be as bad as some of these news outlets think that he's going to be? There has been multiple sources predicting Graham Mertz to be at or near the bottom of all SEC quarterbacks in 2023. So,
giving it your best shot. So that's all we can ask for, Mike. You know, it's like your dad says.
All right, number 14, and this is where, you know, people get tuned off immediately. How could you have my guy 14th?
Yeah.
Graham Mertz, Florida.
Okay.
And I also say this every year, and people don't believe me, but it speaks to the depth at the quarterback position in the SEC. He was a 5-star recruit, never quite lived up to the billing at Wisconsin. Now he's at Florida. 59% passer, that's not bad. 5,400 yards, 38 touchdowns, 26 interceptions. But why is he last on my list, Shane? First year in the SEC. First year in Billy Napier's offense. 4 of 5 offensive linemen are new starters for the Florida Gators. So I think there's going to be some struggle there. If Florida does well, it's going to be because of their running game.
Yeah.
Now, Graham Mertz, maybe play action, maybe he feeds off that and he has a great year, but I'm not really ready to go that far. And just the fact that, you know, say what you want about Anthony Richardson, he did go number 4 in the NFL draft. He was very, very inconsistent. So is that Anthony Richardson or is that Billy Napier? Probably a combination of both.
Yeah.
So obviously, I believe that's the what she's talking about, and then plus there's been a lot more, needless to say, and I've shown a few other cases of it. But I think that's primarily what this video is about.
Graham Mertz is going to be terrible this season, right? The 13th best, the 14th best out of 14 quarterbacks in the SEC. And there is a lot of college football analysts who are already saying that Napier, after just 1 year at the University of Florida, is on the hot seat. So combine those two factors, and how much pressure does that put on Graham Mertz? You know, I think it's important to look at what Graham Mertz did at Wisconsin before we can see what he could potentially do at Florida. While he was at Wisconsin, he hovered at about a 60% completion ratio. Richardson, he was in the low 50s in his completion rate in his lone year as a starter for the Gators. And their quarterback rating was pretty comparable.
There's one big difference. Anthony Richardson was a nightmare to try to contain, and you could try to keep him bottled up, but he would just do some of the absolute most miraculous runs, moves. I mean, he had the moves like Jagger back there. I'm telling you, that guy was so hard to tackle, unbelievably fast, and he would scramble around until somebody got open. So he was super dangerous. This guy that they've got there is not really a scrambler. He's more of a stationary quarterback that's going to use his arm, which, you know, if you're throwing 70% completion rate, you can do that. If you're throwing high 50s, and that's at Wisconsin against lesser opponents, I don't know. I really don't. And I know Florida can run the ball. They've got some nice running backs, but they've got some new people on their offensive line. And look, you can put 7 and 8 people in the box and stop the run in the SEC. Everybody's got talent. You know, you can push around some smaller clubs, but they don't play that many small clubs this year. Really, they've got a very tough schedule. So Graham Mertz is up against it, and I think the other guy they got is Jack Miller. Now, they were going to bring in another quarterback, but that kind of blew up a couple of times, and I've covered that a bunch. I'm not going to go over that again, and I'm just not in the mood.
Now, you listen to me. You're not in the mood? Well, you get in the mood!
But anyway, normally I would. But let's let her continue.
He was a pretty impressive high school recruit. He was the number 65th player overall, according to 24/7 Sports, and the number 3 pro-style quarterback in the class of 2019. So he was a highly prized quarterback recruit coming out of high school. So then what happened at Wisconsin? We did some digging and we found some interesting stuff. Wisconsin has historically been a run-first offense with a high-level offensive line play. We always talk about those big guys that they have out there in the Midwest, right? Wisconsin wanted a giant offensive line and they always had an elite running game. The expectation was for a more balanced offense when Mertz came in. However, that didn't really happen. They kind of hung on to that old-fashioned offense. One of the things that we heard repeatedly when we looked into Graham Mertz was that he had a visibly strong arm when he was given the time to get into a rhythm. Limited pressure allowed him to go through his progressions. However, under pressure, he tended to fold, and then his footwork got sloppy and he forced throws. His glaring inconsistency seemed to be from the fact that Wisconsin was inconsistent. Graham Mertz performed his best at Wisconsin when he was asked to be a game manager and piggyback off of a strong run game. I wonder why that was appealing to Billy Napier. After Braylon Edwards emerged as the running back for Wisconsin in 2021, Mertz was then asked to throw the ball less, but he did it more efficiently, more effectively. Mertz is not known as a dual threat quarterback, but he's capable of bailing and picking up a few yards here and there if he needs to. That's going to be what UF is looking for him to do. While Mertz was at Wisconsin, Paul Chryst was fired. After that happened, there was a quote in the Daily Cardinal that said, in their first week without Paul Chryst's input on the offensive side of the ball, the Badgers finally reincorporated the play action game as a major aspect of their offensive approach. Offensive coordinator Bobby Ingram acknowledged that the team was looking to increase its usage of play action in recent weeks, and the dividends paid off. Quarterback Graham Mertz consistently has open targets, leading to a 299-yard, 5-touchdown day for the junior quarterback. So this is the first week without Paul Chryst. So it appears that Graham, when put in a situation that fits his skill set, has the ability to thrive. Next, I want to talk about the truth about Graham Mertz coming to Florida.
You want answers!
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
All right, so when Billy Napier was looking for a quarterback in the transfer portal, he supposedly analyzed film from over 20 available quarterbacks. And he picked Graham Mertz out of all 20 of those.
Okay.
And I know fans kind of have a hard time believing that. But listen, this is what Napier has told us, and he has never given us a reason to doubt him. I know that a lot of people speculated that he intended to bring in Michael Pratt from Tulane or Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina, neither of whom ended up transferring at all.
The Grayson McCall guy would have been a great get. That would have been ideal, and that's really who I expected them to get. I thought they were going to get one of the top-level guys. I think there were some transcript problems switching from one college to another, and then Florida, you know, they've got their SEC standards. There might have been an issue with Coastal Carolina and all that situation, and that's been talked about in the news. But anyway, I think that's who his number one guy was, and then they were interested in the guy from Tulane, and I think this wound up being sort of their, you know, best case available at the time. So
Sam Hartman, who ultimately transferred to Notre Dame. But this was Napier's guy. Graham Mertz was Napier's guy. Out of all of the film that he watched, this is who he wanted. So should we trust Napier's evaluation?
I think that's important to remember. If he does not perform well, this is who Napier wanted. It's who he wanted. Now, I have to admit something right now, and I'm not happy about it.
I got to do something here. I still can't believe it.
Yep. They're recruiting well. And Napier came in with a reputation of being a good recruiter. Now, you're down there in Louisiana. You know, there's a bunch of really good athletes down in Louisiana. It's not hard to recruit down there. And Florida is chock full of blue chips. I mean, tons of them. So you would expect that to translate pretty good. But I do have to admit their recruiting's going pretty good other than quarterback.
Using the eye test last year, our best players were Napier's guys, either freshmen that he recruited once he got to Florida or transfers like Osiris Torrance. That is something that I think matters here, okay? Think about Osiris Torrance. Think about Trevor Etienne. Think about Ricky Pearsall, Montrell Johnson. Those are all guys that Napier evaluated from elsewhere and brought here to Florida as transfers, and they were immediate impact players for the Gators. So I think that what we need to do is trust Napier's process.
If you've watched any Florida YouTubers, that is the line you will hear the most. We got to trust Billy Napier's process. If you've watched any, that's in every video. It's like just shocking how much that's repeated. But hey, you know what? Maybe it works out. Look, I'm not saying Billy Napier's not going to work out, but the jury is out, and last year was not helpful. So anyway.
At Louisiana, Napier had a mediocre season, right? Similar to Florida. His second season was pretty good, and his third season was elite. Napier needs time to install his program and his processes. According to an anonymous recruiting staffer, this is a quote. Remember when Napier said that the program today is light years ahead of this time last year? Yeah, it definitely is. That is pretty important piece of information right there, right? Billy Napier, we've talked about this on the show. We did a video about Napier saying the program was light years ahead of where it had been before. We know that Napier doesn't speak out of pocket, right? He doesn't come up with crazy quotes. He doesn't sell massive expectations to the media. He usually just stays pretty quiet. So the fact that Napier made that statement that the program's light years ahead, and now we have people anonymously saying, yeah, this team is much improved, is something that should really make Gator fans pretty confident going into this season.
All right. So there you go. It sounds to me like they feel good about their QB situation being a serviceable quarterback, and he's going to be a game manager, and they're going to be fine, and they're going to improve this year. They won 6 games last year and lost 7. So if you're going to improve, you got to at least win 7 or 8. I think their ceiling is 8 for next year. I think their floor is 5, somewhere in that neighborhood. Now, a lot of people got him winning 5.5. I've got him winning 6. And I don't know if the Vols will be one of their wins or not. We've got to go down to the swamp. I like our chances, but it's the swamp, and we've had no luck down there for a long time. So and that's battered Vol syndrome talking right there. So anyway, I like our chances. I think we'll probably win that game, but I will not be shocked if something happens, because I'm telling you, there's some voodoo down there and some bad luck and everything else. So we'll see how it goes. Plus, it's at 7 o'clock, which actually adds a whole lot of fun to it on some level. And boy, believe me, let me assure you, those Florida Gators, they'll be ready to rock and roll at 7 o'clock. You can count on it. They will be very well fortified.
You fellas been doing a bit of boozing, have you? Sucking back on Grandpa's old cough medicine?
No, oh no, sir. No.
So anyway, it's going to be fun to watch this. But look, they're pushing all their chips in on Graham Mertz. And we'll see how it goes. But I can tell you this much. If Florida wins 6 games next year, going into 2024 with a brutal schedule, okay, there are 4 games that are out of conference. And look, if you're playing the SEC, you have a tough schedule. Your 4 games out of it are Miami, Florida State, and UCF. And UCF will put a whooping on you if you're not careful. They have 1 easy win, and I think that's Sanford or something. I don't know, one of those easy games. But the rest of them, they got 11 tough games. So he's going to have to show serious improvement in the wins and losses. That's what it boils down to, because that's what people care about. So anyway, I thought this would be fun to cover, and I guess we'll find out. Are they correct or they're delusional? We're going to find out this year. We're getting closer, folks. We're well under 60 days before the first game. So, that's just next month, basically, and we're there. Our first game, I believe, 1st of September, and there's actually some games in August, late August. So we're getting there. We're not far away. So everybody's getting pretty excited, and I'll be watching Florida very closely, and then we'll have our big game with them. To me, that's the game of the year, because it will set the tone for the entire season with Joe Milton. If he goes down there, he said, I don't lose in Florida. If he keeps that, like he did against Clemson, goes down there and plays a steady, solid game like he did there, and he starts using his legs a little bit. And that's the difference between not only him and Graham Mertz, first of all, he throws for a better percentage. He throws a better ball. But then on top of it, Graham Mertz is only going to scramble so much. But I can tell you this much, Joe Milton is capable of being a great dual threat quarterback if he wants to be, if he chooses to be, because he's 6'4", 6'5", runs like the wind, and is strong as a cable. And like this, is a guy that does backflips. So it'll be pretty interesting to see how this goes. But I prefer our quarterback room. I can tell you that very easily. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover the Vols and all our opponents. And I'll keep my eye on those Gators. And if you've not subscribed, right over here on your right, my left, just hit that little button. I would appreciate it. And right over here's my most recent video. And YouTube and the algorithm. Ooh, algorithm. Thinks you'll love it. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.